Hi, everybody. Welcome to Disney Animation Studios, everybody. My name is Grace Sun, and I'm the film lead over at Facebook's Creative Shop and a member of Facebook's Scene, which is a program that we have at Facebook to support and shine a light on underrepresented filmmakers in the entertainment industry. And today, I am beyond honored to introduce you to two incredible women that we have here in conversation with us today. The first is writer and director of Frozen 2, the chief creative officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios, and Oscar-winning filmmaker Jennifer Lee. Welcome. We're also so honored to be joined by Oscar-winning actor and advocate, Ms. Geena Davis. We are so honored to have you here with us today, and it is particularly exciting to be in conversation with these two in this moment, right after your second Oscar, Geena. Congratulations for your incredible and vital work with the Geena Davis Institute. And Jennifer, what an incredible opening for the premiere of Frozen 2. For those of you that don't know, it's the #1 movie in the world right now. So at the heart of both Frozen and Frozen 2, there are two incredible female protagonists at the heart of this story. My first question for Jennifer is, when people see Anna and Elsa, what is the thing that you hope they see in their relationship as sisters?
Well, I think what I love about Anna and Elsa, we've often in film, we see two women against each other, you know, and they're always pitted against each other, except for Thelma and Louise, which was a huge inspiration. So let's not forget that, huge inspiration. But the strength of these two women to support each other, it doesn't make life any easier. They are very different. They want different things. They are trying to navigate life. They are very real. And so this inspiration of them as people that can show you ways to get through those hard times, to have the courage to be who you want to be, step into the unknown, participate in life, but do it with the support of your sister and the women supporting each other. And I just hope it's this feeling of they ring true to life, but also feel just that you don't feel alone, you feel supported, and you feel like you have the right to be a part of this world and participate with all you have.
Downstairs, we were talking a little bit about how these are two sisters who really are in charge of their own fate in a truly extraordinary way. And Geena, you were really inspired by sharing animated films with your daughter when she was growing up, and I know that's one of the inspirations behind the Institute. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about showing her animated films and how that inspired your work.
When she was about 2, I decided it's time to start showing her little kids entertainments. And the first thing I did was start with preschool shows. And I think because I'd been in like movies that struck a nerve with women, that I had a sort of spidey sense or something, because I immediately noticed from the very first thing that there were far more male characters than female characters in something made for the littlest kids in the 21st century. And I was horrified. And then I saw it in other, in little kids' videos. So I didn't intend to suddenly turn this into my life's mission or something, but I decided to bring it up whenever I had a meeting in the industry with a producer or studio exec or whoever. I'd say, have you ever noticed how few female characters there are in movies and TV made for kids? And every single person said, no, that's not true anymore. It's been fixed. And very often they would name a movie with 1, maybe 2 female characters in it as proof that gender inequality was over. I couldn't really believe it, that I couldn't find even one person who said, I know. So that's when I decided that I needed the data. Oh, and I also point out that everybody was very sincere about it. Nobody was saying, oh, who cares? We care about that here. This is all we care about. We work on it so hard. So I realized this is absolutely not adding up. There's something very strange going on. So if I get the data, maybe I can go directly to the creators and share it with them. And that was my goal from the beginning with it, not to try to educate the public, but just privately say, did you happen to know? I think it seems like you guys didn't realize it. And it proved incredibly powerful because I happened upon something, first of all, that nobody realized was going on, seemingly. I couldn't find anybody else who noticed it. But then also something that data could fix, because they were so unaware. When they heard the data, they were blown away, and it really like opened their eyes. And because it's people making kids entertainment, they do it because they love kids and they want to, do right by kids. So I had all those things going in my favor.
And Geena, you've actually been here at Disney Animation before. So 9 years ago, Geena came and gave a talk right here. Jennifer, you were at that talk. I'm curious to know how that impacted you as a filmmaker and then now as a leader in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. I was one of those people who was completely unaware of the data. A couple things I was aware of is when you're coming into the industry, and this wasn't particular to Disney Animation, it was someone, as you're trying to get into the business, of the phrase, boys don't see girls' movies, and we always have to think of the boys in the market, and that was a big priority. And so I was aware of that, but I was not aware of the numbers. And I think the data was so staggering that I walked out very changed, and it had a huge effect on the people there. I will say, I said this the other day, which was shocking, is there were a couple people who weren't ready to hear that info, and they were men who got very defensive. And I couldn't quite understand what that was, and it was difficult to talk about because I was one of the only women in that team. So to speak up about how powerful that was, but to hear a resistance. And I think that I realized something, that there was another part of this, which is the feeling of responsibility to make that become something positive, to make change versus an insult or a negative was going to have to happen. But the amazing thing was the impact for the studio as a whole was huge. Right after that, literally 2 months later, I was working on Frozen, and no one had any problem with these two female leads. They were excited because it's like, see, this is great. This is a goal we have. This is wonderful. And the proof started to be in the scenes. And for me, I was making these characters and was very inspired of real women, three-dimensional women who they have their own power, but all the flaws we have, they're not one note. There's not one of them, and they're not always talking about a man and all of that. And the men here also responded to them. They loved them. And so the progress in the studio has been was it open dialogue, and it also helped us be supported to prove the notion that strong female characters can speak to many people, men and women, boys and girls, and can carry a film, a bigger film, a global film. So it was a huge starting moment. God, I think of how far we've come in 9 years, and I couldn't be more excited and more grateful because you've been at it. You haven't stopped.
Oh, well, speaking of the past 9 years, so guess what? Disney is number one as far as female protagonists in TV and children's movies. Number one. Female lead characters in children's TV shows is 64% are female, and in children's films, 45%. So it's incredible. Yeah, and nobody else is close at all. Not even close.
Elsa's proud right now. She's looking on. She's going.
Well, judging from some of the applause, I think we have some of those animators in the house right now. Very cool. For the research that the Institute has done over the last 9 years, particularly when you're thinking about animation, what are some things that filmmakers can do to instantly promote more diversity, more female representation?
I have a very shorthand way to do this, which is whatever you're already going to make, whatever you got the script maybe already, whatever, do a gender pass where you go through it and you say, who can become female? And then you change the first name, and then you're done. Because, I think part of the reason, and I realized also that as far as like actors of a certain age, female actors of a certain age, I think people don't think of casting women when it's the banker or the lawyer or the whatever, the cab driver. It doesn't occur, it's always, default is always male. And so just look for those characters that obviously could be either gender, could be any sort of representation, intersectional representation, and change it. And it makes it so much more colorful and more interesting. Another thing that I recommend is when you're doing this gender pass, whenever it says, it talks about a crowd scene, right in the script, a crowd gathers, comma, which is half female. Because it was interesting, we found in our early research that the crowd scenes in animated films were wildly short of female characters. In fact, in some animated movies for kids, only 17% of the crowd scenes were female. Because it's so unconscious, you have to take active steps to counteract it. You can't just assume, I'm woke, I'm doing a good job. All of us have unconscious gender bias, and so we have to actually very consciously work to overcome it.
What I'm hearing is Geena Davis starring in Frozen 3. Just saying.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Ask us in a year if we can handle Frozen 3.
I will. Well, speaking of some of those actionable steps that you mentioned, Jennifer, when you were thinking about Frozen 2, what are some of the things that you and the creative team here did to ensure a diverse cast and that the new characters in particular felt really authentic?
One, we knew, though, we wanted to anchor it in Anna and Elsa. These women hadn't been together much, frankly, and they were growing, and we knew Elsa's story in particular was unresolved. And we wanted to make sure they stayed the core of this and not sort of just dazzle with new situation, but really grow and evolve with them. But we also knew that in terms of representation on screen, it's not just women, men, people of color, and seeing yourself on screen and seeing yourself in a world that inspires you and really hearing how critical that is. And we had a Frozen 1 that had a very moderately diverse background of Arendelle, because it was inspired by Norway. And that was for us going, but I wanted to work with Sterling K. Brown because he's amazing, but saying you can do why with diversity and with gender, and why not? And we went with the why not, and in researching enough to be responsible for, there were people of color in Norway, even though this is a fairy tale land, giving backstory and giving his own arc. And then doing that as we had an indigenous group as well. I loved the idea that Anna and Elsa and Arendelle are here for everyone, but it was a conscious choice because Frozen was Frozen, and we were evolving, and an acknowledgement of there's clunkiness too. We make mistakes, we don't do it right, but saying we can speak to our intentions, which is part of saying the more people can see themselves on screen in roles that are inspiring, the more it inspires them to do what they want to do and to participate, and it encourages us to not have these unconscious biases that we do. And so that was important. And so Frozen, for me as a filmmaker, was a start of as I learn and grow, that is for all of us a continued evolution and continued conversations, really having to be speak out loud about things that are hard to talk about, but the importance of it, and it actually brings our rooms closer and brings everyone in the room to feel like they're more of a participant and an equal part of the room. It's been an incredible, as I say, just from the 9 years for me starting, and I had just started here, so it's kind of like I can really feel the growth and change.
You just started, and you started Frozen right soon after?
I had been here almost a year. I was doing Wreck-It Ralph, and you came while I was on Wreck-It Ralph, and then they asked me, while finishing Wreck-It Ralph, to take over Frozen as a writer at the time, and then director with Chris, but so I hadn't even been here a year yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
One thing that I read that you said is that you've noticed in rooms here that when a young female animator sees a woman in leadership at the table, they're more likely to let their voice be heard, to lean in, so to speak.
Absolutely, and I think it's across the board, and what was amazing is after Frozen, we started talking more about this. I believe it was one of our visual development artists, and we were all sitting together, and animators were there as well, saying that thing of feeling the confidence to speak up. We had some really hilarious moments of the arguments of whether Hans should kiss Anna or not kiss Anna. The guys are like, oh, he's going in for the kiss. And we're like, oh, no. But for him not to kiss you, that you're not even worthy of that kiss, oh my God. It's like you're at the door. The guy doesn't he says, I had a great night, and walks away. You're like, oh my God. And so that no one had that conversation. It was like those little things of authentic moments. Yeah. And that's what our rooms are like, and just realizing that there's a moment where you feel that you have an unspoken permission to contribute, and vocalizing the importance of that. And what I love is we've spoken about that openly with men in the studio, and they all go, oh, wow, okay, we want that. We want the balanced rooms. We want people speaking up.
I love that. That work is so inspiring, and I think you see it in the workplace, and you also see it in the work in the final film. Looking across the entertainment industry, we're still pretty far away from 50-50 gender parity, especially when it comes to female directors, and even more so when it comes to female heads of studio. Geena, how do we fix it?
Well, the simple formula is, no, see, that's the thing. People have known the numbers for decades. Yeah. Nobody is in the dark about how few female directors there are, or studio heads for that matter. And it's not like people are saying, what? We must do better. This is untenable. We must go straight to 50-50. It's not happening. So I'm not sure that there's a fix like happens to work for on screen, but I think it is part of the same thing where you have to make conscious decisions. You have to say, I have gender bias, and I don't think anybody can truly say I hire purely on merit, because how do you know you're conquering your unconscious bias? A great example is I was in Australia, and they have a short film competition every year, and they said every year only about 17% of the films chosen to compete are directed by women. So one year, a couple of years ago, they decided, you know what, let's, for the heck of it, we'll take the names off and see if that does anything. 50-50. So these were smart, well-intentioned people who desperately wanted to be fair, and they couldn't unless the names were off. So unless you're taking people's names off things and interviewing them behind a curtain and you can't see or hear them, you've got to say, I'm biased, how can I overcome that and be fair?
Well, you have a whole range of people in the room today. You have animators, you have filmmakers, you have executives, you have audience members. We have at least one sixth grader somewhere. If you were to give one actionable item for people in the room to do, looking into 2020 as we try and get to that gender parity, do you have one thing that is your main ask?
Well, I think it goes to what you were talking about having encouraging women to have their voice and speak up and be part of the solution. I mean, it's very hard if you're still in an environment where you're the one woman in the room or one of two, and it becomes very hard. But we have to support each other and encourage each other's voices to be heard. We just need to do that, because it just all falls by the wayside unless you're very, very proactive about this stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's a piece of it too that we can't ignore, and not that we want to, but can't, which is also the equation of for us, men wanting this too, is critical. And what we have to balance is when we say equality does mean the greatest candidate for the job, and it isn't excluding men, because you're not going to make progress that way, and I also think it isn't fair. But having dialogue that acknowledges certain things, as you said, talent is universal. It knows no gender, it knows no race, talent is everywhere. Access, and to the places where people see your talent, opening up how you look for that talent, recognizing women often interview differently than men. What are the true qualities needed for the job? Those dialogues are critical, and I think they can only happen if it's also inclusive of men in saying, this isn't to exclude you, this is to say we're in this together, and to always know the right person for the job gets the job, but you have to be open to looking for talent in new ways. That is fair. It's not fair to say, you don't get it because I want a woman who's not as talented. not that that happens. People think that happens. It's not how it works. But it is about being able to have the dialogue to say, to do what's best for all of us, the more balanced the rooms are, the better we're going to be. And making sure that the talent that is the best for us is being found. We have that obligation, and we have to have the dialogue together. It's hard, though, often as the woman to bring it up, because it does feel like you're attacking. But it's okay to say, isn't this complicated? Let's talk about it. Because I'm in a studio that is, pushing towards balance and is going to take time to get there, and yet we are all talking openly together, and I am in a room where we can talk about it and they don't feel threatened. They want to ask questions. It took a lot to get there, of us having the courage to say, I know this is complicated, but can we talk about it? Mm-hmm. It's with women, but it's also with men, because I think, to your point, is like there's a reason the needle hasn't moved, and I'm like, because I don't think we can solve it alone.
I feel sure that I read recently that Bob Iger announced that 40% of the upcoming, so it's 4% in the general industry of directors and 40% at Disney. So, I mean, I used to...
You can clap for that.
And highest number of female leads in TV and movies. So I used to never single anybody out because it seemed, when I started 15 years ago, everybody was at the same place and it didn't make sense. But now I always say, Disney's doing the best. If people, and I said from the beginning, if Disney changes, everybody else will. And so I'm waiting for that to happen, because Disney has profoundly changed in an incredible way. And to make, that many movies starring women and TV shows about women and girls, it's fantastic.
That's actually a perfect segue to my last question, which is, Jennifer, you are right now the leading creative animator who's a female in this industry. How does that influence your vision for the studio, and how does gender equality come into play for when you think about the movies that you want to make and who's making them?
It's a lot to think about. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I'm thinking about we're in those rooms trying to solve story problems and help each other navigate. These movies are hard to make, and that's number one priority. And it's a lot. But I think one of the benefits I have worked with almost everyone in the studio. We know each other. We can have real conversations. I can talk about goals and then invite questions. I think that there is that thing of, because I have been in the situation of assumptions being made about me as a woman, and not necessarily here, just in general, I know what that feels like. And I do have that opportunity to say, have we looked this way? Have we tried this way? And, I'm proud I was the first woman to direct a Disney animated feature film. There are now 2 more female directors with me who are incredible. One who was promoted from inside, who's extraordinary. I mean, come on, she worked on Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph, she's incredible. And a woman we brought from outside who is this wonderfully experimental, independent writer, but has Disney in her heart. And so I've got that, and we are growing that way. And everyone has supported it, and they are the absolute right women and people for those jobs, and everyone supported that too here. And we're just getting started. Disney Plus is going to allow us a lot more opportunities to try out new talent and grow new talent. And so I think there's an awareness, but also I have an obligation to keep asking questions. I know it's a place of privilege. I got to go up to Geena when she just won her Oscar and say, I am inspired by you. I want us to do great things for women in the industry. Can I just say hi? And I know I have that. That's a luxury. That's something a lot of people don't get to do, and I got to do it. And so there's a responsibility to that. But I know it's a long process. 9 years ago to here, that's my journey here. Yeah. And I am so excited for how far we've come. And I do get to be in Disney where we're driving it really forward really fast. But I just hope the momentum picks up. I can feel a shift. Yeah. It keeps going.
I agree. I had another idea for when you ask what could people do. The Disney company is so huge in so many different areas that when you just said in-house, that you could help train women to be directors and raise them up within Disney, because give them episodes of kids' TV shows or something, give them things to practice on and grow your own talent. I think that would be an incredible thing to do.
Hear that, everybody? That's your action item from Geena Davis. Well, thank you both so much. It's been such a pleasure to watch, I would say, the mutual girl crushing happening between you two. Thank you both so much for being here. Let's give these two a warm round of applause.